Hey folks, there are times in the guitar community where reaching out for advice often puts you in a worse quandary than you were before. Or the modern media or interweb can't provide a singular answer to a simple question because it is completely dominated by a very opinionated and diverse base, which is good. It's good, but where it can work against you, I'll give you the following example. I was recently on one of the social media sites, and I'm subscribed to a few guitar-related pages where people often ask for advice. And one of the most common questions that you get is, where can I find the best guitar for X kind of money? So the most recent example was somebody saying, what's the best guitar I can buy for, and here is the qualifier, £400. All right, 400 quid. So what is 400 quid? Well, it's about $550, isn't it? It's probably about, I don't know, 650 Canadian, Australian, something like that. Somebody will do the conversions. But 400 quid's a lot of money. You can get a decent guitar for 200 quid. So 400 gives you a lot to play for. So the question is, not what's the best guitar, what's the best acoustic guitar that I can buy for £400. And I'm scanning through some of the responses, and I could see how it would just confuse anyone. All right, so there's a number of people right off the bat that just say, buy a Yamaha. Now, I've often said buy a Yamaha. It's a good answer to a lot of questions. Not necessarily a great answer to the question, what's the best guitar I can buy for 400 quid? They don't specify what type of Yamaha. And, you know, Yamahas can range from your £50 used on eBay to £1,000 models, £2,000 models. There's quite a range there. What most people mean when they say buy a Yamaha is to go out and buy one of the newer, let's see, the F6, 700, 800, I think they're on now, series Yamahas, which are about $199, maybe £250. All right, not bad, but you're not using up your whole budget there, are you? So you've still got £150 to spare. So yeah, I love the Yamaha 700 series guitars. They're probably the best entry-level guitars at around the 200, 250 level. If somebody's asking about 400, I'm not sure that's a great answer. There are probably, you could specialize or be succinct about particular Yamaha brands for the £400 range, and that would be a better answer. But just to say buy a Yamaha doesn't really help anyone. One person at least, maybe two, said buy any Epiphone. Now, Epiphones are a strange brand because there are some very good ones. The Masterbuilt series, some people like the Doves and the Hummingbirds and swear by them. But there are some very entry level, the DR100, 150 stuff that I think, you know, you can do a lot better even in that price range. These are 100, 150 pound guitars. So buy any Epiphone is not really helpful. And you get a lot of people making these answers as well. One person said Lag. Lag makes some very good guitars, but their entry level, which is the 100, which we featured on this channel, is probably more like a 250. It's a bit comparable to the Yamaha 800 series. So I suppose there are some all solid Lags that might start around 400 that I'm not sure if they're the 300 or 400 series. But you have to be more specific about that. So, and then there are people who make, you know, more specific, i.e. give you a model. not just a make, but a model, and it goes all over the map. I mean, you've got people saying Harley Benton, and of course you can buy really good acoustics starting out around 100 from Harley Benton and on up. I'm not sure it quite fits the 400 criteria. I think that's a cheaper market. You got people, suggesting buy a used Taylor, buy a used Martin or a Mexican Martin. This is a little bit more difficult because the used market is not as, let's say it's more fluid. Let's say that, the prices can sort of fluctuate from person to person, particularly if you're buying online. And I'm not sure how much Taylor you can get for 400 quid. I have often looked at the 100 series Taylors or 200 series Taylors, and they're a lot more than that, even in the used market. You might pick up a 110 for around 300-400 is possible, and that might be a decent shout. But anything higher than that, like the 200 or the 400 series, are going to cost you closer to 750 to 1,000. So it's going to be tough to say shop Taylor. Yes, there are some lesser Martins, shall we say, but you kind of have to be more specific, and also subjecting someone to the used market, particularly if they're a new person looking for a guitar, may not be the best answer, because they're not going to be savvy about shopping for bargains in the used market. And then, of course, you're buying a used guitar, which you may or may not need to do work to. So, there were lots. I would say 90% of the answers were either unhelpful because they didn't answer the question fully, i.e., here's a great guitar, it doesn't match your price range. It's maybe way over, it may be way less. It's nowhere near what you were asking for. Or there are people who gave sort of vague answers. And then, when you ask 100 guitarists anything, ask them what their favorite strings are, you'll get 100 answers. They're very opinionated. And so there are literally probably dozens of brands that are punched into that online response. I saw Tanglewoods, which are very popular here in the UK. Again, sort of more cheaper, £200-300 range, although there are some higher models that may meet the criteria. Again, Harley Benton, a lot of your mail order guitars are mentioned. Somebody mentioned Orangewood, which would be good if you're in the US, but I'm not sure you can get any in England. And you certainly would be paying most of that in shipping if you were to order it from the US. Orangewood's not really a thing over here yet. So a lot of the answers were kind of unhelpful, and I can't see how they help the person asking the forum, because they just got to get bombarded with a lot of opinions, some of which are well-formed and a lot of which are ill-formed, or from a position of relative ignorance. You ask somebody what kind of guitar they should buy. You get certain people who are very experienced, bought a lot of guitars, maybe work on guitars, maybe have a knowledge of lots of different guitars and have a representative idea to give an answer from. And then you have people who bought one guitar, no two brands, go off something they heard online, or sort of popular wisdom like, gee, it's got to be Fender or Martin. Those kind of answers. So, I'm not sure. Sometimes I think guitar forums kind of work against disseminating good knowledge, particularly for new people seeking definitive answers. Now, if it were me, there are quite a lot of answers that I could give, again, for a £400 guitar. But probably one of the guitars I would recommend is this guitar here, which is a Blue Ridge guitar, and this is the BR, I think 142, but there's also a BR40, which I also have. This was just closer to me to grab, which I think would be around £400. And I'd say that for that price range, it's one of the best guitars I've ever got. And Blue Ridge are known over here in the UK, but they're not the first off of everybody's tongue. I mean, they're not that well known. They're still a secret to a lot of people. But having brought the two of these with me from the US, I would definitely recommend Blue Ridge guitars because, I know the BR40 model would probably be around $400. You might have to buy a used one, but right around 400, 350, 400 pounds. So that would be a great answer. Of course, you could also put the Godin guitars, and these came up quite a lot, although people were very vague about which particular ones. I even saw one answer say, any Godin guitars, Siegel, Art and Lutherie, Norman, La Patrie. Well, those are all very, very different. For one thing, the La Patrie are all nylon strung, and the others are steel strung guitars. And there's a big difference between an an entry level Siegel S6 and one of the higher end Artist Series Siegels. And same with the other brands as well. What is it? The Songmaker. I think that's either Norman or what is it? Simon and Patrick. It's probably a 300 or 400 pound guitar. But some of the other brands are a little cheaper. Sorry, other models a little cheaper, a little bit more expensive. You kind of have to be more detailed if you're going to recommend Godin, because it's quite a range of different brands and models under that umbrella. But I think a Siegel guitar, maybe an S6, would be a good answer in the 350 to 400 pound range. So there are probably, and then of course the Alvarez 80, 60, 80, 90, if you can get one for 400, would be a good answer as well. I certainly recommend Corts. And you could probably find a Cort Earth 200 series guitar around 350 or 400. I like the Cort Earth series. I don't hear a lot of people saying that, but I've worked on a lot of them, and I think they're great value for money. And I think Cort as a brand is not only underrated in their own right, because they make some really good electric models as well. They make a lot of other people's guitars. So I think they're a very reliable manufacturer, kind of like Samick in some ways. So yeah, certainly there are specific answers that you can give, but of course they're going to get lost in a sea of thousands of responses. Some people put guitars in there that I definitely would not recommend, and I'm not specifically going to pick on anybody at this point, but when someone's looking for a 400 pound guitar, that's a nice budget. That is a nice budget for, let's say, a first acoustic guitar. I did not have that budget when I got my first guitar. It was more like 100 pounds, or maybe even less, because it was, back in the 80s. You could. I forgot to mention Guild. You could get a reasonable Guild, maybe one of the. What is it, the DAG series, the Chinese made Guilds, which just because they're made in China doesn't mean they're bad. We've had a few on this channel right around the 350, 400 range that would suffice to answer that question. But anyway, just beware whenever you posit a question in a public forum of the answers that you're going to get. You're going to get helpful and non-helpful answers that span quite a gamut. So for instance, in this very, very particular question, acoustic guitar, 400 pounds, the answers went from 100 pound guitars to 1,000 pound guitars. Laminates, solids, well-known brands, not so well-known brands, mail order brands, used, new, and even some people answered specific vendors like go here. This they'll give you the best bang for buck, and some of that would be mail order, like Musician's Friend or Guitar Center, and or in the case of the UK responders, Guitar, Andertons, that sort of thing. And some people are go buy one used, Go to your local guitar shop, play a lot of them, tell them what you want to spend, and then sit down and play them and pick one out. Which is not really bad advice for somebody buying for the first time. I think buying sight unseen is better if you have a bit of nous, if you have a bit of experience, not only playing but setting up and being able to sort of determine what might be good value and might not be good value, and also navigating online sites like eBay and Reverb. If you're doing it for the first time, it can be a bit intimidating, and you can end up possibly getting a guitar and getting bullied out of getting good customer service because you're not used to using that platform. So yeah, it's not a bad shout to send somebody to a shop, but a shop is also going to be full of salespeople who are going to do whatever it takes to sell that person a guitar and stop them from buying one online. So, there are lots of there is a lot of specific advice you can give people asking. However, it doesn't always come through in these big communities. I can't see the person looking through those responses and feeling any closer to having a decision, a definitive idea of what they want than before when they posited the question. So just, my advice when, we live in a privileged time where we have, answers at our fingertips. We have an encyclopedia in a little package that we carry around with us. That was a remote, not a phone, but you know what I mean. We have the internet at our beck and call. We can readily pull up information, but that can work against you too, because when you pull up information, you're not going to get a definitive answer. You're going to get lots and lots and lots and lots of opinions. You're going to get lots and lots of people positing truth with a capital T when it's really, sort of more of an opinion, or a small truth with a small t. So just be aware of that when you consult the great consensus online. You may not get the answer that's going to help you. You may have to do your own research and do a bit of trial and error. But anyway, I don't think they'd go wrong with a Blue Ridge guitar. It's just the one, that's the brand that came to mind in that price range and these particular models. However, I've heard a lot of opinions on these. Some people think they're way too bassy. They're sort of built on Martin principles, and the encampments in the acoustic guitar world. You got your Taylor versus Martin purists, and some of whom are going to think Blue Ridge are excellent guitars, and others are going to think that they are just cheap Martin knockoffs. So, it's hard to get at a definitive answer to a lot of questions. But anyway, I guess I'd rather have the ability to summon up lots of ideas than have no ability at all. Well, back in the old days where you were always shooting in the dark, you had 3 brands to choose from, two music stores within 50 miles of you. And most of the time you ended up with a guitar that just, it was okay, you got by with it, but it wasn't anything, that you would particularly brag about. So I think it's better to have the information than not. However, there are certain pitfalls in the dissemination of mass information. So anyway, just something to talk about. How many of you solicit answers to guitar or music related questions online, and how much stock do you put in what you get back? I'd love to hear from you. See you next time.